Awesome, thanks. Welcome, everybody. Hi, I'm Trevor Greco. Jackie's out tonight, so I'll be covering for her. Thanks, everybody, for coming. By a show of hands, can I have anybody that this is their first time to the meeting? Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. First up, we have Officer Anderson to give us a update on neighborhood police activities.
Thank you, Trevor. I don't have a whole lot tonight, but a couple things. I did bring our maps, which I bring every month. They're on the table back there by the coffee maker. We always talk about cars that are getting broken into. Over 70% of our cars that are getting broken into have items in plain sight, or the cars are unlocked. So just something to think about. Please share that information. I'm not going to go on and on about that, except that that's our #1 crime citywide, so easily preventable. Another thing, I had put out a next door posting a couple weeks ago. I did it to West Highlands, Sloan's Lake, and Jefferson Park. We had 2 major spats of BB gun incidents in these neighborhoods in February and March. This map just kind of shows you where all our cars were damaged by some young individuals, likely, that got a BB gun. We're telling our neighborhood groups about that because if you yourself or if you know of anybody that experienced damage from a BB gun, please, please, please make those reports. We're pretty confident we know who did this, and once they get charged criminally, we need to put all those cases on these individuals because it's thousands and thousands of dollars worth of damage. So we're just sharing that information. We didn't get as many in West Highland as we did Sloan's Lake and Jefferson Park, but we did have a few, so we just want you to be aware of that. I don't see a lot of reactions, so maybe that's a good thing. Those are our major criminal events. I did get an email also today that kind of touches pretty close to here. There was a stabbing over the weekend off of 23rd and Federal by a laundromat down there, if any of you are familiar with that. It was 2 people that knew each other. There was no danger to the community. They were just inviting and came to an argument, and one individual stabbed the other. So we just want everybody to be okay with that and that there's no danger, because I actually got a couple emails on that today. So just wanted to let you know about that. Our next station meeting, which we love to have people from West Highlands at, is April 15th at our police station at 46th and Lipan at 6 p.m. on that Monday evening. And our guest speaker this month is going to be an individual from Denver Animal Control. And he's going to talk a little bit about enforcement, but the major part of his appearance is to talk about community outreach, pet adoptions, things like that. So if there's any interest in that, we'd love to have you there, because we like having these different speakers to talk about different things going on in our city. So that's all I had. But does anybody have questions for me? Traffic concerns? I got one traffic concern earlier. So those of you who don't know, I take that information and I pass it along to our appropriate units. But did you have a question over there?
Yeah, I was wondering whatever happened to the guy that escaped from the police and he's armed and dangerous, and last time anybody saw him was on the low of 50th. Was there a follow-up with that?
So when was this? Was this just recently, or? Okay, because me and Jerry were just talking about, there was an incident in Commerce City about a week ago where somebody escaped from a work crew. If there was one on 50th and Low, I'm not familiar with that at all. I can check that and get... What's that?
He had an ankle bracelet, and cut the ankle bracelet.
Okay.
And he was last seen and got arrested.
Okay. Okay, that's a new one. Was that within the last few days, or? Okay. Honestly, I'm not familiar with that. I'll get the information and I'll send Jackie an email and Trevor and let them know what's going on with that, because, yeah, I know nothing about that. Yes?
There seems to have been a spate of burglaries and/or attacks of women via alleys, back doors being kicked in, etc. Were there 2 perpetrators, and were they both caught, or was one caught and the other one?
So we did have one in West Highlands. There was another one that there was some confusion. The detective actually contacted me because he got contacted by West Highlands. The other one was not in the West Highlands neighborhood. It was down off of 6th and Sheridan. So there was no connectability or anything in that. There was a forced burglary, though, in West Highlands where somebody kicked the door in and somebody was home. So that's concerning to us when that happens. Most burglaries that occur when people are not home, because most burglars don't want to be confronted. And we don't like that either because it can turn into another type of crime, unfortunately. But yes, there was an arrest made in that, and the one up in the Highlands. So that's... What's that? Okay, that was another piece of information that was out, and we don't have any information that a rape occurred on either one of those incidents, per the detective. Because that was being circulated on the Nextdoor app, yeah, and that came to us through different avenues. We don't monitor Nextdoor because we can't see it, but sometimes people call us with stuff that they see on Nextdoor. When we got that, we immediately checked with the detective, and that was unvalidated information. So there was not a sex assault associated with that burglary. So that's bad information. Well, I don't know. It's still under, even though there was an arrest made in the Highlands one, it's still under current investigation because it still has to be presented to the courts and everything. So I don't have any information other than what I'm sharing with you here. So, but good questions. Hopefully that helps you a little bit. Yes.
Tennyson Center question. A couple of months ago, there was a kid up on the roof of the main building, and I think it was last week, one of the kids ran away, and 12 hours later they still haven't found him.
Right.
Has things escalated over there?
I wouldn't say they're escalated. They're ongoing. We're at Tennyson Center almost every day. It's the nature of the business of the clientele at the Tennyson Center. These are kids that have experienced trauma, and there's a lot of other underlying issues. So, and that's our most common call there is kids running from the center. The center has a no hands-on policy, so they monitor the kids and follow them when they run, and they call it in because they want those kids to be not captured or apprehended, but contacted in the most gentle way possible. All our officers have been through certain training to deal with them, and we just get them back there in the easiest, non-physical way that we can. All the kids that have run from there have been returned, though. We're not currently missing any kids from there.
Why do you have calls to service practically daily there where Mount St. Vincent?
It's a staffing thing. Our command staff and up to including Chief Payson have had multiple meetings with the administration at Tennyson Center, and it's just something that we're continuously fighting to try to get the calls for service down.
Why is it so different than Mount St. Vincent?
Because Mount St. Vincent's doesn't have that no hands-on policy. Their staff is allowed to grab the kids and hold them there. It's a different protocol at that facility. And that's, probably something in their structure from lawyers or whatever, I would assume, telling them not to do that. But that's what we see, yeah. And I would agree with you. We have very few calls at Mount St. Vincent. So you're seeing what's going on there, Ray, for sure. But, yeah, that's something we're always, we have monthly meetings with them, and this is just an ongoing thing. But, we can't tell them as a police department the way to run their facility. All we can do is, give suggestions and try to get those calls for service down. Because when they're out running, getting on roofs and they've had a couple damaged vehicles and stuff, that's what we don't like to see. But most of all, the security and safety of the young ones is the most important thing. So when they get down by the lake and things like that, that's where we really get concerned. If that answers your question, hopefully. Okay. Any other questions? All righty. Thank you.
Thank you very much. He's coming back.
Oh, okay.
Next up, we have our councilman, Rafael Espinoza, District 1 Council.
Hi, good evening, guys, or everybody, sorry. So just quite a few announcements just from the City Council office. This has been a busy week already, and it's going to be a busy week the rest of the week. First off, in Berkeley, we will be submitting this week the Harkness Heights overlay. I mentioned this probably a couple months back. I have one of the iterations. This is the February 21st draft. I will go ahead and pass it around so you guys can look at it, get a little bit of a taste of what is in it. This is for 400 residents in the Harkness Heights neighborhood, so between 41st and 44th, Federal to Lowell, well, near Lowell. The reason why I want you to see this is you're going to see some of the forms in here look very familiar to a lot of Northwest Denver, particularly West Highland. The blocks essentially between Federal and Lowell sort of developed in much the same way. And so if there is any interest in sort of once this language is put in the code and maybe applying it to your block, I'd be all ears and hearing if that is something you would like us to look into and investigate further. The big thing here, and don't be freaked out by it, I'm going to go ahead and start here. The big thing here is that the current zoning allows nearly 6,000 square feet to be developed. And the way they restrict that from the total amount is they have a lot coverage requirement, a maximum, so you can only cover 37.5% of your lot, and that's where you get the 6,000. They're actually putting together, they're actually proposing an actual maximum building size. In their area, they're doing 3,000 square feet. And so what that means is you get a lot of creativity. You've got a box that can accommodate 6,000 square feet. You get to essentially use half of that and then figure out how you want to do it. So it'll be unique. It is not the most restrictive overlay that the city has approved, but it is going to change the outcomes there going forward. The other thing is the Sunnyside residential overlay. So all SU and TU zone districts in Sunnyside, we're proposing a very, very unique set of overlays for that, and that application is one that I just showed up today, and so we will be trying to submit that tomorrow as well. The thing that I did yesterday for Jefferson Park is submit a historic overlay application, a historic district application for River Drive. And I have in my hand the first 10 pages for West Highland, a historic district for the Tilden School. This would include the Bosler House and many of those structures that are essentially to the west of the Woodbury Library, those very institutional structures over there. So that's part of this week. The other thing that you may have seen is the mayor finally announced some way overdue rules about the right-of-way and how they close them and how they route pedestrians and how they handle complaints and their responsiveness. And so my name's on here as giving credit, but they misspell it, so I don't know who this PH guy is, but I'm just amazed that they included me, right? So I only bought 15 copies, but if you're interested at all, fortunately you guys are sort of mostly over the major construction like what you had at 32nd and Lowell, but I'm going to pass those around. But they're there so you can be familiar with it. If there's construction over a certain duration, they've blocked off your street, here's what to expect, and here's who to call and whatnot. So that's many of the things from the last 2 weeks. Yes, this one indirectly impacts you. So when you see that the Harkness Heights overlay, you will see that it's got the name of Pelona Architects on it. That is the consultant that we hired, and they were able to do in 2 months what we couldn't find other consultants to do in the better part of last year. So I have now had a conversation, and I just received today a proposal to have them move to the commercial part of the Berkeley overlay process, and this would be an overlay for Tennyson Street from largely from 38th to 46th. Why this impacts West Highland is, if you recall, last time I asked, sort of threw out the idea that if anybody wanted to, it had the same concerns that I did about the future of 32nd from essentially Spear to Perry, that you should reach out to me. I've asked to be part of the next Merchants Association meeting as well. Because the odd thing about that is it's got the same zoning that a significant portion of Tennyson already has. And so it sits between 3 landmark districts. So it'd be very odd if we had development there that took the shape of the new buildings along Tennyson Street, particularly if we lost the residential. The thing that's been protecting it right now, much smaller parcels, much higher cost per square foot. But as you know, these things are, I'm not trying to instill fear. It is only a matter of time because this is occurring on Pearl Street right now. And so the conversation I'd like to start having is, I do believe we need guidelines, design guidelines and standards for Lowell, so that we're not discouraging redevelopment on Lowell, but that something that goes in there somehow relates to these landmark districts that flank it on 2 sides. So that your historic Main Street that was there because of the trolley stop sort of somehow resembles, is a neighborhood serving center now and going forward. Did the house get demoed? Because it should have been demoed, or it needs to be, so yeah. So last time I said it was pending, it was probably only a matter of days, if not hours. So it did. And so I haven't pulled the permit. I don't know what's going there, but I will because now I'm curious. So I'm still open. If you're interested at all in being part of that conversation about the look and feel of new development along 32nd, by all means contact me today or at any time at my office, because I'm looking for people to be part of essentially a task force to have that conversation and work with the design team. 29th and Osceola. This is a call to action that I'm going to ask of you. So somebody in the neighborhood reached out and sort of brought this to my attention, and I was like, this is a sort of no-brainer. Why do we not have a good pedestrian crossing from the senior center to the senior living across 29th at Osceola? And so if you're at all, if you agree, could you send a letter either to my office or directly to Public Works and CC me? If you need help with the language, I'm happy to draft up something to start to move the needle. So we've already asked Public Works to look into that, but again, where we've had success time and time again in this district is when we show a lot of public support for the same concept. You will be getting your pedestrian crossing, your signal crossing at Julian this summer, among other things, but let's now move to this, because why have a senior center and seniors living in proximity but not a clear identifiable crossing for it? Yes, Don.
There are multiple children across there 2 or 3 times a day.
Wow.
Across 29.
Yeah, because
and there's a park there.
the playground, right?
So maybe I can add it up. It really does impact a lot more than just seniors.
Yeah. So it's I don't know why I've driven that so many times. It never occurred to me that this should have a more pronounced crossing here. So so I'm happy to field some questions. That's sort of what's going on in the district office right now. Ray.
I don't have any question. You're having all these overlays that have been put on fast track. Going to city council to get passed. 2 years ago this month, we came to you for an overlay to Carter District, and met with you numerous times, and why have we not got the same treatment they have? We didn't get until recently, you kept trying to
So again, I'm going to give you the answer that I gave you previously in front of everybody.
That's fine.
Okay? The reason is you picked a 2-block area that was very, very small to begin with. And what I said is my expectation, and you presented some very, very confining proposed regulations. I didn't oppose the regulations, but I said that is a very small area. Can you please reach out to all the neighbors in that area and find out the level of support? Because it's a legislative process. And so I can't bring something to my colleagues on council that don't have the majority of support from the neighborhood. So what I said is that can you at least knock some doors in your area and find out if more than just you and your friend agree with these changes. And you never, ever provided any level of support other than 2 people, yourself and one other. And so then you asked me again, well, how did these other areas get expedited? And what I said was Harkness Heights had an overwhelming show of support at our Brunn meeting where we were looking for where there was support. They put a 22-member task force together, which is nearly 10%, I'm doing math again, 5% of the total impacted households in the area, and worked with the architect, and committed to a series of regular meetings about it. So what I need is volunteer to lead this effort. The community led that effort. We supported them with staffing. In the case of Sunnyside, they have a former city planner that is a resident of their neighborhood that took it upon herself voluntarily to lead multiple public meetings and to do multiple outreach efforts that then we supported with mail-ins to 5,000 households to make sure, and held multiple meetings to make sure that we were reaching the population. My expectation has always been that I don't just impose law or rule changes on communities unsuspectedly. I want there to be dialogue neighbor to neighbor and to see if there's consensus. And so what you had was a very, very defined area, a very walkable area that should have been not very hard for you to take what you had and go and find out if there was even support on your block. And I never got that from you.
The reason you didn't get that is because we came to you with some ideas, asked you, your consultant, CPD, whoever, to look at this information, tell us if it's viable or if it can be used or not used. We were going to go door to door and tote something to people that wasn't even possible to do.
It was all
We
possible.
asked for your help on that, you would never give it to us, and if there was a power, you told us, go get support.
So
That's why.
again, to correct that, what I told you was that it was all
You would not give us
possible.
information. You also told me numerous times you would give me a copy of a phase of Harkness Heights that would work in our neighborhood, we could use that. You never, I asked you twice to give that to me, and you said you would. You sent a faulty PDF file. You said you'd resend a good one. That never happened. I asked for it again. I didn't get responses the last 2 times I emailed you. The last response Steve and I got from you, you answered our questions in cap letters, not only in all cap, but in red cap, which was very difficult to read, but to send a message. But until we got that email a month ago, that's the first time we ever got a process that you wanted us to follow. That was after 2 years. We had a meeting with you on an overlay we pretty much put together from everybody else's. We got to the meeting, you hadn't read the document period, you did not discuss it in the meeting. You told us to look at Honey's and see if they'd work. Well, they were TU neighborhoods, not single unit.
So I will spare you all the details. Okay? There's a lot of truth to what he was saying. But what he's not telling you is the things that I did say and convey that tried to move this effort forward. My frustration has been repeatedly, and I'll voice it here. With WHNA, we do not have a regularly scheduled planning and zoning committee meeting where I'm invited and understand what's transpiring in the neighborhood. The most success I've had in office on anything, including a 2-year-long fight that just ended in December against DHA, where they were triangulating with all members of council around me, was with Honey. Honey has had consistent leadership in its planning and zoning committee for 33 years. They have good standards for how they write letters, how they inform the planning board, the board of adjustment, the city council, and others. And they meet regularly with a posted agenda, and so I know when a developer comes forward to me that I can send them to the Honey PCD and get a response that has been vetted with the community on a regular basis. The same thing with Brun. We worked hard. The same thing with Sunnyside. Sunnyside came to me when I was early in office and say, hey, how can we do this? And I said, get with Tim Burrs. He runs a great meeting. And sit there and understand his process. Look at his documents. Those are best practices. If you can work that way, then we can actually help create outcomes that you're looking for. And so what did they do? They went and met. They sat in those meetings repeatedly, and they adopted those standards. And I've said it before. There's a resident of West Highland who lives near 32nd and Lowell, who actually chairs the Sunnyside Planning and Zoning Committee. He is not here. He is not involved in your neighborhood, the neighborhood he lives in, because of the frustrations he has seen with how your Planning and Zoning Committee operates opaquely. And I have voiced my concerns individually. I have voiced my concerns now from this dais, that what I need, what any council person needs in order to actually move the needle on your behalf is a planning and zoning committee that I can send developers to, know reliably that you're going to meet on a regular basis in an open, posted forum, and take input, and then convey those determinations to me, and that you're going to be looking at it objectively, with the concern of the neighborhood back to me. Same with Brun. We had these frustrations with Brun. I voiced them, and what did they do? They finally got on a regular schedule. And that helps because a lot of these things have dedicated timelines, and if we can't respond with any certainty that we're going to get a response, it makes it very difficult. And then I am operating in the dark because I don't know what the community knows or feels until I see it come up in a forum that it might be wholly inappropriate for me to even react. That's what happened on the St. Dominic's Church. There was half a community over there that was opposed to what was transpiring, but I had never been informed. And I go to a planning board meeting, and then I've been always told that it's fine, we all love it, and then I go to the planning board meeting and people are objecting because there's a 75 feet height limit. I overstepped my bounds. Somebody could challenge me on this. I went to both sides of that meeting and brought them out into the corridor and said, look, there's a win-win outcome here. Can you guys agree to mediation? And they did. And then they earned a covenant, right, that restricted it to 3 stories. The problem with that is that was 3 stories in a single unit neighborhood, Hooker and 29. They were doing it because the church had a need for housing, building a priory for the brothers. What did the church do? Because that wasn't under their ownership, the Chicago group sold the land to a developer. And that developer first looked at that project and said, I can build a 6-story apartment building here. They actually pursued that outcome until they found out that no, there was a covenant. They had to move mountains to sort of get that record and point out the fact that you can't do